What if I told you that the prototype's identity is finally 100% revealed by Chapter 4? Yeah, but how? What if I told you that Elliot Ludwig, the founder of Poppy Playtime, is actually the prototype? Do you know that Ludwig is Poppy's father? If Elliot is Poppy's father and the prototype is also Poppy's father, then does that mean Elliot's wife has two husbands? I guarantee you one thing. If you watch this video till the end, your mind will be blown and it will change everything you thought you knew about Poppy Playtime. Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into some insane theories about Elliot Ludwig and have finally figured out 100% that he is actually the prototype. You've never heard anything like this before, and even if you don't know who he is, don't worry. You'll soon understand exactly who he is and how he became the prototype. And since this video is a bit longer, don't skip. Every detail is important. So lean back, grab your favorite snack, and enjoy this incredible journey. The theories you'll hear in this video will blow your mind. I've explained everything in full detail, so once you watch this, you'll never need another video on this topic. And by the end, we'll have 100% figured out that Elliot Ludwig is actually the prototype. So with that said, let's get in.
Hey, wait, 97% of you guys are not subscribing. What? That's a huge number. Guys, please subscribe or else I'm leaving this channel. That's it. I'm going now.
Hey, Huggy, please wait.
No, GlimmerByte. We work so hard on these theories, researching for hours to confirm everything. Look, we made a video about Ollie before Chapter 4 and said he was the prototype for sure way back in Chapter 3. And we also proved that I, your cute and legendary Huggy, actually survived. We always confirm our theories 100% and collect as much evidence as possible before sharing them with you guys. And yet, you're still not subscribing? It's completely free and takes no effort at all.
Don't go, Huggy. We'll tell our real viewers. They will subscribe for sure. So guys, please subscribe or else Huggy won't be in our future videos.
And also, why are you guys not commenting? I've been saying this for the last 4 videos. Comment to bring our burnt toast back. Oh wait, I forgot to introduce us in case you're new. I'm Huggy Wuggy, but some call me Cracked Egg, Cracker, or even Rotten Egg. And this here is GlimmerByte, the owner of this channel, though I just call him Crispy Noodles. And finally, we have Catnap, who is our burnt toast, or now, burnt beyond recognition. But guess what? He's not here today. Why? Because in our last roasting battle, I roasted him beyond recognition. So guys, if you want him back, comment below. If you don't, he won't return, and you'll miss out on epic roasting battles where I destroy Catnap. If you don't comment and subscribe, I'm out of here.
Don't go, Huggy. Our viewers will subscribe.
Okay, I believe in you guys.
All right, now let's dive into our theories. So now let's clear up the first big question. How is Elliot Ludwig Poppy's dad? In Chapter 4, during the doughy chase scene when we're running, there's a VHS tape that we can grab before the rocks fall down. This tape can be played on the TV after we defeat Doughy. Oh, sorry. By the way, did you know that Doughy actually survives in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4? Yeah, you heard that right. If you're a true Poppy Playtime fan, you must know this. Click here to watch. All right. So after that, we find the TV, and we can insert the tape into it. From this tape, we learn that Poppy already knew the hour of joy was coming. She starts by saying, "It was awful. So awful. I didn't want... This wasn't what I..." This suggests that she expected something different. She thought that she and the other toys were finally going to leave the factory, but instead, something terrible happened. This becomes even clearer when she says, "I thought we were gonna leave the factory. Not this! Not this. All those people." And then takes a deep breath. This means she was expecting an escape, but instead, she witnessed the massacre of all the people in the factory during the hour of joy. Taking a deep breath shows that she is overwhelmed by the memories of what happened. She then says, "Prototype says we can't leave. Not now. Not ever." Poppy hates the prototype and the factory, but she also hates that he is right. She says he explained everything, and he's right. This likely means that she wishes he were wrong, but she understands that his reasoning is correct. She then says, "We can't leave. It's too risky." Poppy then brings up the horrible experiments Playtime Co. conducted on humans, saying, "What they did to us, we can't let it happen to us or anyone ever again." This means she now sees staying in the factory as a way to prevent those cruel experiments from happening again. She then talks about something disturbing, the toys consuming the bodies of humans. She says, "Doesn't make me feel better about the bodies, though." What he was saying about them. This means the prototype likely told her that the only way for the toys to survive is by consuming human remains. She acknowledges that there's no other option, saying, "I know there's not really another option. The toys will starve, otherwise they'll die, but it's still disgusting." Even though she understands it, she finds it horrifying. Then comes the main part. Poppy says, "I wish you were here, Dad," and mentions that she really needs one of his talks right now. She then adds, "When you were running this place, you always knew what to say." The only person who ever ran Playtime Co. was Elliot Ludwig, which strongly suggests that Elliot is Poppy's father. Now, some of you might be wondering, if she says, "I wish you were here," and "when you were running this place," doesn't that mean he's dead? And if she hates the prototype but misses her dad, doesn't that clearly show they're two different people? So how could he still be the prototype? I know this sounds confusing, but the story runs much deeper than it seems. Stay tuned, even if you don't know who Elliot Ludwig is. I'll explain everything in the simplest way possible so you guys can fully understand. This lore is way deeper than we thought. So now that we understand Poppy is actually Elliot's daughter, let's find out who Elliot Ludwig really is. Elliot Ludwig is the founder of Playtime Co., which he established in the 1930s. He created the company with the goal of bringing joy to children by making innovative and exciting toys. His passion for creating fun and memorable experiences for kids drove him to build one of the most successful toy companies of its time. So now, we have a clear idea of who Elliot Ludwig is. In Chapter 2, we find a VHS tape in Elliot Ludwig's room, which is very important for this theory. So listen closely. In the VHS tape, the narrator says that Elliot was a great man who founded Playtime Co. He was divorced, but he loved his family deeply. His goal was to create amazing toys for children, and he spent countless hours at Playtime Co., constantly working to innovate and surprise. Then comes the most important part. In the 1960s, an unfortunate death of a family member made Ludwig deeply saddened. However, the tape does not mention who this family member was. We'll get into that soon. But despite this tragedy, he continued working to achieve his vision for Playtime Co. The narrator emphasizes that Ludwig was not the kind of man to leave a project unfinished. Then, the tape states that even after such a tragic loss, referring to the loss of his family member, it suddenly cuts off at, "It all begins in the faithful year of 19. However, the last two digits of the year are never mentioned. Now, we understand who Elliot Ludwig is, why he created Playtime Co., and the tragedy that shaped his journey. The next thing I'm about to discuss will reveal some very important details that could make this theory 100% true. In Elliot's room, we also find an experiment report labeled as Experiment 814. A live rat was used for this experiment. It was fed 3 portions daily for 2 weeks. After that, the rat was killed and placed in a mixture of poppy flowers and preservative gel. 1 week later, an electric shock was applied to bring it back to life, but it didn't work. Now, looking at the analysis, the scientists believed that the poppy flower had special properties that could possibly bring back life. They thought the flower's symbolic meaning might not just be a coincidence, but could hint at something more powerful. The scientist also suspected that using a larger test subject instead of a rat might give different results. Although the report doesn't mention a name, only using "I," it was found in Elliot Ludwig's office, which suggests that he might have been the one who wrote it. So how does this connect to Elliot being the prototype? In the experiment, we can clearly see that the scientist was trying to bring dead things back to life but didn't succeed. However, the scientist still believed that if the correct process was applied and a larger body was used, the experiment would be successful. As we know, the scientist who wrote this report is Elliot. And we also know that Elliot never leaves a project unfinished. What does this mean? I know your mind is racing, but this is just the beginning. So, what does this actually mean? In the VHS tape, we learned that a family member of Elliot Ludwig died, and he was deeply saddened. But he continued his journey. So, what's the most logical conclusion? The family member who died was his daughter, a girl named Poppy. Now, do you really think anyone would experiment on their own child? Never. So why would Elliot do this? He does this because Poppy had died, as we see in the VHS, and he wants her alive. So this means Elliot was working on the project using the poppy flower, and around that time or after that, this tragedy happened. As we know, Elliot doesn't leave a project unfinished. He succeeded in the experiment using the poppy flower to bring back life, as shown in Experiment Report 814. So Elliot turned Poppy into an experiment using the poppy flower. And here's another important detail. What's the name of the Playtime factory?
Hey, are your heads hit with burnt toast? What are you even saying?
Hey, let me explain. So guys, I'm asking you, what's the name of the factory? That's right, Poppy Playtime. But why did Elliot Ludwig name it only Poppy Playtime? He could have called it Fun Playtime, this Playtime, that Playtime, anything. But he only chose Poppy. That's because his daughter's name was already Poppy. And do you remember the first successful doll of Playtime Co., the one that could talk and walk like a real girl? Yes, I'm talking about Poppy. But guys, the Poppy in the commercial of Playtime Co. is not the real Poppy. It's just an AI, by the way. So it's likely that Elliot Ludwig named the factory after his daughter and made Poppy the first successful doll. This 100% confirms that Elliot had a daughter named Poppy, and in the end, he turned his daughter into the Poppy doll, who was already named Poppy. Okay guys, so now we understand that Poppy is the one who died, as mentioned in that tape. If you're still unsure, here's something that makes it very clear. We know that Elliot was divorced because he spent more time in the factory than at home. This was simply his lifestyle, so his wife left him. Very simple reason. So, the person in the tape can't be his wife, and it definitely isn't his father, mother, or any other relative. It can only be his daughter. We know for sure that the Poppy we see in Poppy Playtime, the doll who was experimented on, is actually Elliot Ludwig's daughter. This is confirmed by the untitled tape. We also know that Elliot had a human daughter named Poppy. So if his daughter is now an experiment, that means Poppy, who was human, was turned into the Poppy we see in Poppy Playtime. So why did he do it? Because Poppy was dead, meaning she was the family member who was mentioned as dead in that VHS tape we found in Elliot's room, with her death stated to have happened in the 1960s, but Elliot wanted her alive. Elliot tried to bring her back using the poppy flower, as shown in Experiment 814. That means Elliot experimented on her. No one else could have done this. Only he could make this decision because she was his daughter. And the reason I'm explaining this so clearly is because I want you guys to understand it perfectly. Keep this in mind. This is important as we go forward. So if we assume that the prototype is Elliot Ludwig, Poppy's dad, then looking at the conversation between Poppy and the prototype, it will make sense why he said those confusing words to her. Okay, now let's look after the conversation of Poppy and prototype. In the conversation, Poppy desperately calls for help, but prototype, who was pretending to be Ollie, reveals her exact location, showing that he has found her. As Poppy realizes the truth, she accuses prototype of lying and questions his intentions. Prototype remains calm, insisting that she has nowhere to run and should come home. He hints at knowing everything about her past and makes it clear that he is coming for her. Poppy panics as Prototype reveals he had taken the explosives we planted in the foundation and he put them to good use. From this, it's clear that Prototype was the one responsible for the explosion in Safe Haven. Now comes the important part for our theory. Prototype says, I admit, though, I'm disappointed. After all that time in your case, I'd hoped you'd see things differently. Don't you understand? So the prototype wanted Poppy to understand or accept something, but she didn't, which made him disappointed. This suggests that Poppy is not obeying the prototype or following his plan, and that's why he put Poppy in the case, to contain her because she refused to be part of whatever he was planning. But one thing is clear, Prototype really needs Poppy. Why? Because she is his daughter. Do you guys remember Dog Day? And by the way, guys, do you know that Crafty Corn killed Bobby Bear Hug? Right. And also, do you know the exact story of all the smiling critters? If you really want to know the true story, which is super important for Poppy Playtime fans, just click here to watch it. And yeah, in that video, you'll also see our burnt toast getting roasted by Dog Day. Because guess what? Dog Day himself joins the video. Okay, so we knew that Prototype tortured Dog Day and even cut his leg off? Why? Because Dog Day didn't obey the Prototype, just like Poppy. Dog Day told everyone to leave this place, and because of that, Prototype punished him. The same thing happened with Kitchen Chicken. Prototype killed him while he was trying to escape. But he didn't kill Poppy. Why? Because he loves Poppy. Because she is his daughter. Then Prototype says, "It's always been about you and me, Poppy." Here Prototype is saying that it has always been about him and Poppy. This suggests that there is a much deeper connection between them. Also, he says Poppy at the end of the sentence louder. If this was just an experiment connection, he wouldn't say it with that much emotion. Then he says, "what we are." That's not a truth that can be burnt away, not when it can mean so much more. This means their connection is unbreakable. No matter what Poppy does, their bond can never be erased. Why? Because she is Prototype's daughter. Then Prototype says, "It's time to come home." Notice how he calls the case home, meaning he wants Poppy to return, not as a prisoner, but like she belongs there. Then Poppy says, "I can't go back in the case. I'm sorry." This confirms that Prototype sees the case as her rightful place, not a prison. Now think about it. If Prototype saw Poppy as a true enemy, someone who tried to stop him and even set a plan to kill him, wouldn't he have said something like, "It's time to go back to your cell," or "You will pay for what you've done"? Instead, he says home, and even calls her name louder at the end. This strongly suggests a deeper emotional connection, not just a master versus rebel dynamic. All of this makes it even clearer. Prototype truly cares about Poppy and sees her as his daughter. So if Prototype is Poppy's father, and Elliot is also Poppy's father, then that means Elliot's wife has 2 husbands!
Wait, what?
But seriously, this confirms that Poppy is Prototype's daughter, which means Elliot Ludwig is actually the Prototype. Even though this theory makes a lot of sense, we still need more clues to confirm it 100%. So let's dive deeper. Deeper. So now, you guys might still be wondering, if in the untitled tape, Poppy says, "I hate Prototype," but later, she says she misses her dad, how does that make sense? And more importantly, she even refers to him in the past tense, saying, "When you were running this place, you always knew what to say." This clearly suggests that her father is gone. But if Elliot Ludwig is dead, then how could he be the Prototype? Well, the answer is simple. Prototype is no longer the Elliot Ludwig that Poppy once knew. He has become something else entirely, a monster. Poppy refuses to accept that the Prototype is her father because he has done horrific things. He orchestrated the hour of joy, leading to the mass slaughter of Playtime Co's staff, and transformed the factory into a nightmare. To Poppy, her father is dead, not physically, but in the sense that his mind, his soul, and everything that made him Elliot Ludwig is gone. What remains is a new, monstrous entity, the Prototype. That's why she speaks as if Elliot is no longer alive. The man she once loved as her father no longer exists. Only the Prototype remains. But there's another theory, one even wilder. What if this is the case? Why did Poppy say, "I hate Prototype," and then later say, "I miss you, Dad"? What if, at the time of recording the VHS, or even now, Poppy didn't realize that the prototype was actually her father? One thing is certain. Poppy was placed inside the case after the hour of joy. If that's true, then only afterward could she have fully understood what happened during that event. The same horrors she described in the untitled tape when she said, "It was so awful. I didn't want this to happen." This idea is further reinforced by her own words at the end of Chapter 3, right after the hour of joy is shown on the TV. Poppy remembers hearing everything during the massacre. It was long and painful. People tried to escape but were helpless, crying out in fear and confusion. Everyone, both guilty and innocent, was killed without any reason. But even after all that death, nothing changed. The bodies were dragged underground, never to be found, and the creatures ate them to survive. At the end of her dialogue, Poppy angrily says, "The prototype has to die. For this. For everything." This suggests that she doesn't fully understand who the prototype really is, because if she did, would she so easily decide to eliminate her own father? We can find more clues from Dr. Harley Sawyer.
If you want to leave this room, it'll come at a cost. It's this little life or yours. You know what you have to do. Just the slightest pull, and you snuff whatever minuscule bit of light still flickers behind those faraway eyes. That brutish glob of clay would do it. Poppy would do it.
He mentions that Poppy wouldn't hesitate to kill if necessary, meaning she has already accepted that some things must be done to survive. From this, we can see that if Poppy wants to, she will kill without thinking much. So even if she knows the prototype is her dad, she will still kill him. Now, there are three possibilities. 1. Poppy already knew the prototype was Elliot Ludwig when she recorded the VHS tape, but she refused to accept it. 2. Poppy didn't know at the time of recording, but later discovered the truth. 3. Poppy still doesn't know the prototype is her father. And here is the last possibility, which is very similar to the second one. At the beginning of Chapter 4, Poppy says she is going to save Kissy Missy. After she leaves us behind, she disappears. After that, we only see Poppy hiding with Kissy. As we walk through the factory and reach a certain point, Kissy quickly pulls us in to hide. Then, we see the prototype outside, searching for something. So guys, if you're wondering how we know the prototype was the one searching for Kissy and Poppy, and also if you want to hear a mind-blowing theory that what we actually saw at the end of Chapter 4 wasn't Huggy Wuggy, but Kissy Missy, then click here. So, this strongly suggests that both Poppy and Kissy were hiding from the prototype. But how did the prototype get there? He must have arrived when Poppy went to save Kissy. And here's the thing. There is absolutely no way Poppy could have saved Kissy alone. If you look at this guy's size, he's only as big as a banana. Just hope no one peels him away. But seriously, she's only as big as Doey's palm. So, she could not have done this without either someone else's help or the prototype allowing it to happen. Now, let's consider this. Prototype is always ready to hunt. When Mommy Longlegs died, he immediately appeared to take her body. When Catnap was roasted by us, Prototype was already there, ready to eliminate him. This proves that the prototype is always aware of what's happening and is constantly on the hunt. So, there is no chance Poppy saved Kissy without some external factor. I won't go too deep into theories about how Poppy might have saved Kissy. But if you want me to, let me know in the comments below. So, why do I say this? What if this actually happened? What if Poppy went to save Kissy, but the prototype captured her at that moment? What if he told her the truth, that he is actually her dad, and demanded that she obey him? He might have given her options, saying, "I will let you leave, but you have to do something for me." This is a mind-blowing theory, guys. It deserves a separate video, and I will definitely make one. But for now, let me explain it briefly. The prototype captured Poppy, but didn't reveal that he was the prototype. Instead, he terrified her by saying, "I will kill him," referring to the player, us, and forced her to obey. Or he might have tortured Kissy to make Poppy submit. This actually makes sense because in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, we see burn marks on Kissy's face, which indicates that the prototype tortured her. We can also hear Kissy screaming while walking through the factory at one point. This must have been the time when the prototype was torturing Kissy. Alternatively, the prototype might have revealed that he is Elliot Ludwig, yet still tortured Kissy to instill fear in Poppy. After all, he can't harm Poppy because she is his daughter. Now, I don't think I even need to explain how many theories come from this. But I think you guys can now understand the situation, and this also strengthens the theory that Prototype is Poppy's father. After all, Kissy had burn marks on her face, but Poppy didn't even have a single scratch. That's because the Prototype would never harm his own daughter. But there's something strange here. Like the fact that the Prototype didn't see us is really weird. There's no way he wouldn't have spotted us. As we discussed earlier, he's always ready to hunt. So why didn't he notice us? I think he was pretending. Based on what we know, this could be what happened. After torturing Kissy to force Poppy to obey him, the Prototype might have gotten Poppy to agree to work for him. But later, she turned against him and ran away when he let them leave. And when the Prototype was searching for us, he already knew where we were hiding. But he acted like he didn't, because he knew neither Poppy nor us could stop him. He wanted to see our power. And later, that's exactly what happened. We couldn't do anything to stop him, and he destroyed Safe Haven and our plan easily. And another weird thing is that after we fixed the generator, Poppy told us to go plant the explosives in the foundation and then meet her at Safe Haven. But after everything, we actually found her trapped in a ventilation block. And on top of that, the Prototype destroyed Safe Haven. This is another huge mystery that we'll discuss, so stay tuned. No matter which of these possibilities are true or false, one thing is for sure. There are no other explanations that can be true except these. One of these has to be correct, but no matter which one is right, they all lead to one conclusion. Elliot Ludwig is the Prototype. There is a tape called Ollie in Safe Haven. The Ollie tape is a conversation between Poppy and Ollie. Poppy is upset and crying, while Ollie tries to comfort her, asking if she's okay and if the bad men hurt her. Poppy says they keep experimenting on her over and over again, and each time she feels it less. She expresses fear, anger, and hatred toward those who hurt her. Ollie reassures her, saying, "I'm right here, Poppy. For you, I will always be here." Poppy continues crying as the conversation ends. What we need to focus on is the last thing Ollie says, "I'm right here, Poppy. For you, I will always be here." This line is critical because it is the exact same line the Prototype says when he reveals that he was actually pretending to be Ollie. When Poppy asks, "What did you do with Ollie?" The Prototype, still pretending, repeats the line, "I'm right here, Poppy." This 100% confirms that it was actually the Prototype who was talking to Poppy on the phone the entire time. And one thing is also certain. Poppy never met Ollie in real life, only through the phone. If she had, she would never have later asked the Prototype, "Was there ever an Ollie?" So this means it was always the Prototype talking to her from the very beginning. And here's something even more important. In the tape, Poppy says, "I hate them, and I hate him, and I hate..." This means Poppy is saying that she hates him, which refers to the Prototype. As we know, the Prototype is Ollie, which means he realizes that Poppy doesn't love him. But even then, he didn't avoid Poppy, because she is his daughter. Just think about it simply. If this was just an experiment connection, and the Prototype knew that Poppy hated him, wouldn't he just stop caring about her? Why would someone care about someone who doesn't like them? Or at the very least, wouldn't he say something angrily to Poppy during their conversation? Instead of saying, "It's time to come home. You are coming back to the case." But since he didn't, this proves that the Prototype is actually Poppy's dad. But guys, I haven't found any solid clues confirming whether Poppy knows or doesn't know that the Prototype is her father. If you found something, comment it below. But regardless of that, this doesn't change the theory. Also, while pretending to be Ollie, the prototype asked Poppy very personal questions: how she was feeling and if the bad men hurt her. The bad men obviously refer to those experimenting on her. Poppy responds that they keep experimenting on her again and again, but each time she feels it less. So from this, we can clearly see that the prototype successfully fooled Poppy the entire time. He learned about her emotions, her plans, and everything. And with that, he succeeded. Okay, so by connecting the prototype to Poppy, the theory that the prototype is actually Elliot Ludwig becomes even more convincing. Now we need to figure out which experiment number Poppy is. One thing is certain: Poppy was created after experiment 814, but we can't determine her exact experiment number. However, I found something very interesting that pushes the theory that Elliot is the prototype to nearly 100%. In Elliot's room, we see multiple children's drawings pinned to the wall. These drawings express their love for the toys, with some children asking for making more toys to Elliot. But two specific drawings caught my attention. They are extremely interesting. The first drawing at first seems normal, but there's something shocking hidden in it. At the bottom, there's a poppy flower drawn. In the middle, there's Poppy, and also labeled as Poppy. And at the top, there's Candy Cat. This could indicate the order of experiments. The poppy flower at the bottom represents experiment 814. Candy Cat at the top represents experiment 1026. And Poppy is in the middle, suggesting that her experiment number is somewhere between 815 and 1025. Now here's the mind-blowing part. Poppy was actually created before the prototype. I'm not 100% certain if this drawing was meant to confirm that, but even if we ignore the drawing, the fact remains the same. Poppy was made after experiment 814, but before the prototype. And here's the final simple logic that proves Elliot was still human when Poppy was created. Poppy could only have been turned into an experiment if Elliot allowed it. Since he was fully aware of what was happening in the factory, he would never make his own daughter an experiment unless there was a proper reason, which, as we discussed earlier, was because she died. Elliot is the only person who could bring Poppy's body to Playtime Co. No one else would have had access to her. Now, if Elliot was already the prototype, he couldn't have gone outside to retrieve Poppy's body. Imagine a massive robotic hand monster walking down the street. It would be impossible without causing chaos. This means Elliot must have still been human when he brought Poppy to the factory, proving that he only became the prototype after she was created. So as prototype is experiment 1006, we now know that Poppy's experiment number is between 815 and 1005. If you guys want me to dive even deeper into this and figure out her exact experiment number, let me know in the comments, and I'll break it all down. And here is the second drawing, which nearly 100% proves that Elliot is actually the prototype. This is a picture of the game station from Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, the same place where we played through the game and tried to escape using the train. Looking at the drawing, we can see a lot of details. The train is filled with many toys, though I can't clearly see all of them. But some are recognizable. Cat Bee and Candy Cat are sitting at the top of the train, and I can also spot small Huggy Wuggy and small Kissy Missy inside. I think the rest might be smiling critters, but I'm not entirely sure. But the most important detail is the smoke coming out of the train's chimney. This is crucial because it suggests that the train is actually running. This means the toys were trying to leave Playtime Co. And if we look at the passengers, they all look really happy. Everyone is smiling in the drawing. Now, the biggest insane detail in this drawing is who is driving the train, and it's none other than Dog Day. Yes, Dog Day is the train's driver. It's clear because of the same yellow and orange color combination he has. No other experiment in Playtime Co. was made with these colors. The only thing missing is his ears, but that's probably just because this drawing wasn't made by an actual artist. Another huge detail in the drawing is the text written on it. For Elliot Ludwig. This suggests that the drawing was made for him. But how does this prove that Elliot is actually the prototype? It's actually very simple but mind-blowing. Dog Day was in the engine room because he was the one telling everyone to leave Playtime Co. and not stay here. He was completely against the prototype. When Dog Day speaks to us, he says, "We tried to fight the prototype's control." This means he was actively resisting the prototype, and that's why he was in the engine room, leading the escape. And this connects perfectly to what we hear in the untitled tape, where Poppy says, "I thought we were gonna leave the factory, but not this." Then she adds, "The prototype says we can't leave." The toys were trying to escape, but the prototype wouldn't allow it, and Dog Day was the one pushing for their freedom. This explains everything. The message in the drawing, for Elliot Ludwig, suggests that someone possible a toy knew that Elliot Ludwig was actually the prototype. He sent him this picture as a plea to let them leave. And here's where things get even more interesting. Dog Day is in the engine room. This makes me think that Poppy might have been there too. That would explain why Dog Day knows Poppy so well. When we first meet Dog Day, the first thing he says is, "You are Poppy's angel. Come to save us." And even before the Dog Day chase scene, he also says, "You and Poppy can fix this." This clearly shows that Dog Day and Poppy were the main ones planning to escape, but the prototype didn't allow it. If we consider this, it makes a lot of sense. Why? We know that Dog Day was still alive, unlike the other smiling critters. But why did the prototype keep him alive? It's because Dog Day was the one who encouraged everyone to escape. However, this theory seems a little off. If that was the only reason, there would be no need for the prototype to torture him like this. So the most likely answer is that Dog Day was kept alive because of Poppy. Poppy might have begged the prototype not to kill Dog Day. And since she is the prototype's daughter, he didn't kill Dog Day but still punished him by cutting off his legs. But here's something even more interesting. Poppy, despite being part of this escape plan, didn't have a single scratch on her. And there's only one explanation for that. The prototype is actually Elliot Ludwig. Now, the final question is, who actually drew this picture? It's very clear that Poppy didn't draw it. If she had, she probably would have written, "For my dad," instead of "For Elliot Ludwig." But wait, I just noticed something really weird. The text in the drawing doesn't say "For Elliot Ludwig," but instead "For Elliot Ludwig" with 2 T's. This could mean 2 things. 1, either this is just a simple spelling mistake, or 2, whoever wrote this didn't have a deep connection with Elliot Ludwig. Now, I can't speculate exactly who wrote this, but if I had to guess, it might be Dog Day. He was the one who encouraged the toys to escape, so maybe he was the one who left this message for Elliot Ludwig, begging to be freed. But I'm not entirely sure. Or it could still be Poppy. She might have intentionally misspelled Elliot Ludwig as Elliot Ludwig so that he wouldn't realize it was from her. This way, she could secretly send him this message without making it obvious. Now, there's a tiny theory here, but I personally don't believe it. What if there was actually another person named Elliot? I mentioned before that Elliot Ludwig's wife technically had 2 husbands, but not seriously. So if this theory were true, then the prototype could actually be Elliot Ludwig, not Elliot Ludwig. But like I said, I don't believe this theory unless I find more proof. If I do, I'll definitely make a video on it. There isn't any solid proof of who actually drew this, and I couldn't find anyone for sure. But if you guys have any idea about who might have written it, just comment down below. I'll surely reply to your comments. So don't be afraid, I'm really curious about your thoughts on this. Come on, let me know. So in the end, this one picture makes it even clearer that Elliot Ludwig is actually the prototype. Here's something really confusing, just like I mentioned earlier. If you remember, after fixing the generator, Poppy told us, "After planting the explosives, we will meet back here." But after everything that happened, we later find Poppy and Kissy in a ventilation block named V6. So how in the world did this happen? The only way this could have happened is if the prototype warned her. But at the end of the game, when the prototype speaks, he reveals that he took the explosives from the Foundation. This confirms that he planted the explosives in Safe Haven. But here's the issue. The prototype can't enter Safe Haven. If he could, he would have destroyed it long ago. Also, I don't think the prototype told Poppy about the explosion beforehand. Why? Because in their final conversation, the prototype only reveals this after the explosion, saying he took the explosives from the Foundation. If he had already warned her earlier, he wouldn't need to mention it again. But wait, some of you might still think that Poppy was part of the prototype's plan. As I mentioned earlier, when Poppy went to save Kissy, the prototype could have captured her and forced her to follow his plan. Maybe he told her, "Tell the player, us, to get the explosives and place them at the Foundation so that he could later collect them." But guys, there's no way this happened. If you look at Poppy's expression when the prototype revealed he had taken the explosives, she was terrified. If she had known about the plan, she wouldn't have reacted like that. Also, when the prototype, pretending to be Ollie, called us and said he was outside, Poppy was desperately begging Doey to distract him. This shows that Poppy was genuinely following her own plan and was absolutely worried because the prototype was outside. This was a huge problem for her. Now, since we know that Ollie is actually the prototype, this confirms that the whole thing was part of the prototype's plan. However, Poppy had no idea that Ollie was actually the prototype until the very end. If she had known, why would she later try to call him from the ventilation block, sounding panicked? And when Ollie finally answers, Poppy says, "Something has gone terribly wrong." That clearly shows she wasn't expecting this. So what actually happened? When the prototype captured Poppy, he forced her to obey his plan and tortured Kissy to make her comply. Poppy pretended to agree, saying, "Yes, I will do it." But later, she betrayed the prototype and went against his plan. If you notice, everything Poppy says to us sounds confident. She speaks like she's in control, fully committed to the plan. From the moment she explains it to the very end, she never hesitates. Now, let's go over the facts again. Poppy told us to meet her at Safe Haven after planting the explosives. But instead, we found her in the ventilation block afterward. The prototype can't enter Safe Haven, so he didn't physically take her. Ollie couldn't have taken her either, based on what we just discussed. And Poppy herself didn't leave on her own, because she expected to meet us back at Safe Haven. So what does this mean? The only explanation left is that the prototype said something to Poppy. But since he didn't mention the explosion directly, he must have manipulated her another way. I believe the prototype blackmailed Poppy. He might have threatened, "I will kill Doey and the player." This would have terrified Poppy, forcing her to open Safe Haven's gates, allowing the prototype to plant the explosives. Then, he could have told Poppy to escape through the ventilation system. Now, there are too many possible theories to explore in this video. If I tried to explain every scenario, we'd be here all day. But based on everything we know, this is the most likely scenario. And don't worry, I'll make another video covering this theory in even more detail. But here's one more strange thing. Right before the explosion, Poppy ran away. And at that exact moment, the ground we were standing on exploded. Does this mean Poppy knew it was coming? No, absolutely not. If that were true, then this whole conversation would have been an act. But I believe the prototype made the bomb remote-controlled. Now some of you might say, but the bombs we planted at the Foundation weren't remote-controlled. That's true, but the prototype could have modified them. He's incredibly intelligent, and if he wanted a remote trigger, he could have easily made one. And here's the key part. He didn't detonate the explosion while Poppy was there. Why? Because no matter what, the prototype still cares about Poppy. After all, she's his daughter. That's why he waited until she ran away before detonating the bomb. Guys, I actually know that this whole sequence is very confusing. I'm sure you have a lot of questions in your mind, and some of you might even think that my theory is wrong. But the truth is, there are tons of possibilities. We can only assume what happened because there aren't any clear clues about what exactly went down when Poppy went to save Kissy. And we still don't know how she ended up in the ventilation block instead of Safe Haven. But if you guys have any questions, just ask me in the comments. I'll definitely reply. Your support and discussions help me put together new videos faster, and I'll also clear up any doubts you have. So don't worry, Let's figure this out together. So guys, by now, if we gather all the clues, it's nearly 100, or maybe even more. We can almost say this for sure, but we need to make this theory solid, like water.
Hey, Crispy Noodles, water is actually a liquid, not solid.
Okay. My brain is fried like burnt toast right now, so I'm misspeaking.
Don't worry, Crispy Noodles, I'll take over. But guys, the clues don't end there. There's actually even more evidence to support this theory. Remember where Poppy's case was in Chapter 2? It was very close to Elliot's room. Now, at the end, during the conversation between Poppy and the prototype himself admits that he was the one who put her in the case. This means that if Elliot's room was near the case, and the prototype is the one who locked her in, then this strongly suggests that Elliot and the prototype are actually the same. So guys, the next thing I'm about to say will make it 100% certain that Elliot is actually the prototype. Just this one thing confirms it completely. And if you consider everything we've discussed so far, that 100% will be burnt beyond recognition, just like our poor catnap, making the percentage even higher. Now let's move forward. There is also another VHS tape we found in Chapter 2 before we go into the train. In that tape, the prototype was locked inside a room. He managed to take apart a digital alarm clock and used its battery along with some other parts to create a laser beam. He then pointed the laser at the security camera, disabling it for 28.3 seconds. During this time, the prototype hid in the camera's blind spot. When the camera was re-enabled, the room appeared empty. A worker went inside to check, but the prototype was still there, hiding. As soon as the door was opened, the prototype tried to escape. However, another worker quickly locked the door again, trapping the first worker inside. Unfortunately, the prototype attacked and killed the trapped worker.
08502. In relation, experiment 1006. The prototype. A close call occurred this week in which he nearly breached containment. The prototype seemingly disassembled the digital alarm clock within his room and utilized the battery, along with several other components, to create a laser pointer, which he then fired into the security camera, disabling it. These actions allowed him 28.3 seconds completely unmonitored. Once function returned to the camera, the room appeared to be empty. One surveillance specialist went in to confirm his absence. However, upon opening the door, she realized that the prototype had hidden in one of the camera's blind spots. The prototype attempted to escape through the open door. However, another surveillance specialist was able to remotely relock the door, despite the other specialists still being inside. One casualty occurred. The prototype seems to possess an unprecedented level of intelligence, beyond that of all other test subjects, as well as an alarming willingness to commit violence. Further suppression treatments will need to be enacted to ensure that no other experiments develop these qualities.
I don't know about you guys, but think about this. Prototype disabled the cameras using a laser beam. He didn't destroy them, just temporarily turned them off. But for many types of cameras, this wouldn't even work. So how did he know it would work on Playtime Co's cameras? The only way he could have done this is if he already knew exactly how these cameras functioned. And that kind of knowledge doesn't just come from being an experiment. It means Prototype was someone who had access to this information before. So, from all the evidence we've gathered so far, piece by piece, every clue laid out on the table, we can say with 100% certainty that the man, the mind, the very founder and discoverer of Playtime Co., Elliot Ludwig, is actually the prototype. So the final question is, why did Elliot Ludwig turn into the prototype? Elliot founded Playtime Co. in the 1930s, which means he was likely in his 30s at that time. Let's assume he was 30 years old when he started the company. Then, in the 1960s, he suffered a family tragedy, the death of his daughter. By that time, Elliot would have been at least 60 years old, which is quite old. He wouldn't have been able to survive for many more years after that. But after turning Poppy into an experiment, he might have started thinking, why should I die if there's a way to stay alive? That thought could have led him to become the prototype. Experiment 1006, the most intelligent, insane, and powerful experiment in Playtime Co. So, when we enter the hallucination scene in Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, Home Sweet Home, and walk through the long hallways, we hear radio news reports. In the first radio announcement, it says, "This morning at 9:45 a.m., the police found a young boy's body in Elliot Ludwig's house. Ludwig was already dead. The boy was inside a big bag in an upstairs room. Some of his organs and bones were missing, and the police think someone touched or moved the body after death. They don't know yet who the boy is or how he died." The second radio says, after the boy's body was found, people asked Playtime Co. for a response. They said the news was shocking and defended Elliot Ludwig, saying he loved children and was not violent. They believe someone else placed the body there to make Ludwig look guilty. Playtime Co. promised to prove his innocence. So, before we take a look at the third radio announcement, let's first figure out what all of this means. While nothing in the radio confirms that Elliot Ludwig actually became the prototype, we do hear that a young boy's body was found in an upstairs room of his house. When people asked Playtime Co. about it, they claimed that someone had placed the body there to make Ludwig look guilty. So, the biggest question here is, who actually put the child's body there? Now let me say one thing. We can never assume anything is 100% true because there is no solid evidence to confirm exactly what happened. But here's my theory. I believe Elliot Ludwig was responsible for the boy's death. Now you might ask, but haven't you been saying that Elliot Ludwig was a great man who loved children? Yes, I did say that. But let's remember, only Playtime Co. has defended Ludwig, claiming he was a good man who loved kids. Why? Because it's his company. He founded it. So naturally, Playtime Co. would want to protect Ludwig's reputation. That means we can't fully trust their statement. But how does this prove Ludwig was responsible? It doesn't. Not completely. This is just my belief. But at the same time, it's possible that someone else placed the body there to frame him. Or maybe someone simply found his abandoned house and used it as a hiding place for the body. So, in order to fully support my theory that Elliot Ludwig was responsible, we need to take a closer look at the last lines from the third radio announcement. Despite Playtime's proclamation of Ludwig's innocence, many believe his reclusive and mysterious nature over the decades makes him look suspicious. When questioned, Ludwig's neighbors stated that he would often return home at strange hours of the night and leave again before sunrise. Some believed he was sick, while others had different theories. Playtime Co. still intends to keep Ludwig's name within its brand regardless. What is sure to be a long, eager battle will follow. Here, we hear neighbors saying that Elliot came home at strange hours of the night and left again before sunrise. This isn't normal behavior for someone simply returning home to rest. It seems very suspicious. I believe that the boy's body found in Elliot's house was a test subject for the poppy flower experiment. So as we know by the Experiment 814 report, Elliot believes that using a larger body, possibly a human, could lead to success. So he used the boy's body for testing. However, I don't understand why the body was in his house rather than the factory. I think Experiment 814 was a personal experiment by him, meaning he didn't let many scientists know about it and kept it a secret. So, he conducted it in his home. The fact that I believe this is the case is because neighbors reported seeing Elliot coming home at late hours of the night and leaving before sunrise. Let's assume the strange hour was around 2 a.m. and before sunrise was 5 or 6 a.m. I don't wake up early, so I'm not exactly sure. Now, if he was simply coming home to sleep, he wouldn't have had enough rest. One thing is for sure, he wasn't coming home to sleep. He could have slept in the factory instead. If he didn't get proper sleep, he wouldn't be able to function properly. So, this means he was sleeping in the factory, coming home specifically for this experiment, and then going back to the factory. If you think about it this way, it makes much more sense. I'm not saying this is exactly what happened, but there's another possibility, I believe. If you look at the prototype's hand, you can see human bones in its forearm, while the rest is metallic. Since the prototype is an experiment, not just an AI, it makes sense that Elliot is the prototype. That bone in its arm belongs to the boy. I know this sounds foolish, but there's nothing else to speculate on for now. The fact that the prototype has a human bone suggests that it was once Elliot himself, rather than just a robotic experiment. This makes it even clearer that Elliot is the prototype. Another strange thing I noticed in the last radio announcement is the line, don't move an inch. This line doesn't seem to relate to anything else in the news report. Since this scene is a hallucination, we can't be sure whether it's just a random illusion or a hidden message. Don't move an inch usually means to stay completely still, but I don't know its exact meaning in this context. It could be a message from the prototype, or maybe we are just overthinking it. However, I believe it holds a deeper meaning. This is just additional information, but it's something to think about. But now, there's something many of you might be wondering. Why did the prototype orchestrate the hour of joy? We now know that Elliot Ludwig is actually the prototype, and Playtime Co. was his creation. But why did he destroy it himself? Why did he turn it into a nightmare, killing all the staff and everyone inside? We know that Elliot was turned into prototype experiment 1006, just like any other experiment. The same brutal process used on other test subjects was used to transform him. In Poppy Playtime, Chapter 3, there is a VHS tape where Dr. Harley Sawyer is seen experimenting on the prototype. In this log, Dr. Harley Sawyer conducts an experiment on prototype 1006, who had been silent in previous sessions. This time, the prototype speaks, asking Harley if he feels anything when he harms them during the experiments. Harley ignores the question, focusing on the secret he believes is hidden inside the prototype, which he is attempting to uncover through painful methods. Despite the suffering, Harley is excited by the progress. The prototype responds by thanking Harley and mimicking his voice, repeating Harley's words, "I learn something new about you every day." What this means. The key detail here is the prototype's words. You stick us, beat us, tear at flesh, do you feel it? This confirms that the prototype is feeling pain, just like every other experiment. Even though he was once Elliot Ludwig, he is now just another test subject, locked away and treated as a thing rather than a person. We also know from another VHS tape that the prototype once attempted to escape, but his plan failed when a scientist locked the door before he could get out. He was trapped, just like all the other experiments. The prototype was furious. The experiments were unbearable, and he wanted it all to end. But because he was no longer Elliot Ludwig, he had no control. He was just an experiment now. He knew he had only one way out: revenge. That's why the hour of joy happened. The prototype hacked into the factory systems, took control of the toys, and orchestrated a massacre, killing every scientist. He wiped out the people who tortured him and destroyed Playtime Co., bringing everything down with him. This event became known as the Hour of Joy. Okay, we've reached the end. Now think about it simply. Why would the prototype care so much about Poppy, even protecting her, despite the fact that she doesn't love him and even tries to kill him? And if you remember Catnap, who always saw the prototype as his god, never disobeyed his orders, and worshipped the prototype. Yet the prototype still killed him, even though he didn't do anything at all. But the prototype didn't kill Poppy. Why? Because she is his daughter. Why did he speak those deep words in his conversation with Poppy? From watching the full video, we can understand that Poppy was the dead family member. Elliot turned her into an experiment to bring her back to life. If Elliot did that, then why would he let himself die when there was a way for him to continue living? Why did someone make that strange drawing for Elliot Ludwig? Why was Poppy's case built so close to Elliot's room? And how does the prototype know exactly how the Playtime Co.'s cameras work, even managing to disable them using simple materials? How does the prototype have full knowledge of Playtime Co., access to every place, and an understanding of everything within the factory? This wouldn't be possible unless he was Elliot Ludwig himself. So, as far as we've come, there is only one thing to say with 100% certainty. Elliot Ludwig, the founder of Playtime Co, is actually the prototype. Okay, guys.
That was our thrilling journey through Playtime Co, and we finally uncovered the truth. Elliot Ludwig is actually the prototype. And guys, I worked on this video for 2 weeks, digging deep to find all these details. So please make sure to like this video. Every single like means a lot to us and keeps us motivated to bring you more amazing content. If you love Poppy Playtime theories and don't support this video, then who will? Hope you really enjoyed it.
And also, guys, don't forget to subscribe and smash that bell icon, just like I smash our burnt toast. If you don't, I'm leaving this channel.
No, Huggy, they will subscribe.
Okay, guys, I trust you. And also, don't forget to comment asking to bring back our burnt toast. He's already roasted, and we need him unroasted, so don't forget.